Now, joining us to discuss all these things is David Cay Johnston, a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist and professor at Rochester Institute of Technology, and the author of The Making of Donald Trump, and also The Big Cheat, How Donald Trump Fleeced America and Enriched Himself and His Family. Welcome, Professor Johnston, to the program. We were meant to have you on last night, but we had white smoke, unfortunately, so we had to cancel the program. Was it a surprise to you to see that Donald Trump was not, in fact, elected Pope?
Well, not in the least, but I think that his posting of that picture when he came under criticism was very revealing, because he then blamed it on his wife, Melania, because Donald doesn't take responsibility for things. If anything goes wrong, it's always somebody else's fault.
Indeed. Well, let me ask you, why does this economic pain and the foreign policy chaos fail to really dent Donald Trump's poll ratings, even though other presidents with these kind of catastrophic events might be absolutely finished?
Well, the economic damage isn't being felt yet. Right now, there are 0 cargo ships in the harbor at Seattle. There are going to be very few soon in Los Angeles, Long Beach, the biggest port in the U.S. But for now, there's plenty of goods on the shelves, and the 20 or 30,000 federal employees who have been fired, they're still collecting their paychecks. They will get them for a period of time before they're cut loose. So the economic damage is off in the future. And the one that I think will change things is Trump and the very loyal Republicans on Capitol Hill are going to severely cut the federal program that provides medical care for the poor, called Medicaid. And within 2 years, Mark, you're going to see on the network news in America some Republican Trump voter, a poor woman who works, a working class family, who says, well, my little daughter Sally is going to die because last year I made $25 too much money to qualify for Medicaid. Now we can't get health care for her, and she has such and such a condition. Or my mother, my elderly mother, provides and takes care of the children so I can work because my husband died or he walked out or whatever. And she was paying $35 a month for her insulin as a diabetic under Biden. Now she's spending $1,000 a month, and her only income is Social Security, and that's $1,000 a month. Those are going to come back to haunt, but the economic damage is not arrived yet. You can see it on the horizon, but the ship isn't here.
Okay, so it's going to take a while for it to kick in. So is it a constitutional problem, as the Financial Times calls it, as I alluded to in the introduction? The fact that we have the MAGA base, which is unmovable, is that a problem for democracy, or is that just how things are?
No, it's a very serious problem for democracy. Mitt Romney, who was the Republican presidential nominee in 2012, said last year, millions of people in my party don't believe in democracy. And he's exactly right about that. There are millions of people who believe that they can have liberty under a dictatorship, which tells you how politically naive they are. So that's one big problem. And I'm not surprised that the MAGA base, which is about 25% of the population, is solidly with Donald at the moment. The bigger constitutional crisis is that Trump is asserting dictatorial authority. He claims he is entitled to do all sorts of things. Now, 14 years ago, at least, that's the oldest I can find a record of my saying it, I said that Donald wants to be America's first dictator. He believes that he alone is competent to run America and the whole world. And I was mocked back then by people who said, well, that's crazy. Well, Donald, about 10 days ago, said, I run the country and the whole world, confirming what I've been saying. And of course, I've covered Donald for almost 40 years. I know him very, very well.
And when you look at your book from, I think it was 2016, The Making of Donald Trump, we'll come on to the big cheat issues in just a moment. But when you look at what you were saying back then in 2016, and you were documenting Trump's use of grievance and a media spectacle for him in order to win the White House. How much different, I won't say worse, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but how different is it since then?
Well, in the first term, Donald wanted to burn down the federal government. The term they used was to deconstruct the administrative state. That was designed to hide what they were up to. He's not a good manager. His businesses all fail, and he always, with one exception, borrows all the money he has in a business. So he's never had any skin in the game of his businesses. So he succeeded in a few areas where he appointed competent managers in damaging the government, especially the Environmental Protection Agency. But overall, he was not very successful in that in the first term. Now he has a whole squad of competent managers and dedicated zealots who intend to undo the United States government as we've known it, economically, in terms of scientific research and education, in terms of regulation, right down to food safety, and freedom of the press, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom to assemble peaceably and petition the government for a redress of grievances. And he's being much more successful this time around. On February 26th, Donald posted on Truth Social and X, "He who saves his country violates no law." And I immediately said, Donald has now declared himself to be America's dictator. And a few days later, the White House at 3 different places posted an official image of Donald Trump wearing a regal crown like a British king or queen would wear, and the caption, "Long live the king." Especially given America's history, that should be deeply offensive.
They would say they're trying to troll the libs, wouldn't they?
Say it again?
They would say they're trying to just troll the libs, wouldn't they?
Yes, no. When Donald came out and his people around him said it's a joke, it's not a joke. Donald declares what he's doing. He's always done this. It's one of the things that makes people think, well, how can he be committing a crime? And by the way, Donald is once again in violation of the Constitution's Emoluments Clause, taking money from foreign governments, from wealthy foreign people, and from the states, which are also covered. The President of the United States is not allowed to take any money from state governments or their subordinates, like cities and counties.
I wanted to ask you about that because you wrote about this in the Big Cheat. Sorry for interrupting. You wrote with a fantastic subtitle, "How Donald Trump Fleeced America and Enriched Himself and His Family." Now, you published that back in 2021. Right. How much worse is it? And give us some examples, you were starting to there, of the kind of things he's doing in just the first 100 days of his second term.
Well, in the first term, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, obtained vast amounts of national security information, even though he couldn't get a normal national security clearance, that resulted in the Saudi government arresting about a large number of super wealthy Saudis and extracting money from them. And what no doubt was given to him by Jared Kushner were records of financial transactions the U.S. had through something called FinCEN. In this term, we're seeing that the children are making deals with foreign governments for the Trump organization. There's the Gulf deal with the Saudis, though that started before he took office the second time. They've announced deals to build golf courses and resorts in the Middle East. There's this meme coin that Donald had. And there's so much of this that I have repeatedly demonstrated from public records that Donald was not a billionaire. He was never worth $10 billion in the past. I think there's a very good chance he's worth more than $1 billion now, but he refuses to file his financial disclosure form. The law requires the president to disclose all of his finances, and Donald is saying no. And what does he have to worry about? It's his toady, Pam Bondi, who's Attorney General. She would have to prosecute that case, and she's not about to do so.
Now if the courts or Congress, and it sounds unlikely, but were to bring him to heel a little bit and were to curb his agenda in some kind of way, would his base stay with him, or would it start to fragment a little bit?
I think most of the hard MAGA base will be with Donald to the end. But the independents, you're seeing a little peeling off. And as you noted, some surveys are suggesting that the peeling off is being reversed. I think that's because the economic damage hasn't hit yet. But you're also seeing on Capitol Hill that many Republicans, looking at their own survey data, realize they are vulnerable in the 2026 elections. That's a third of the senators are up for election and all members of the House of Representatives. So you're beginning to see some of the Republicans on Capitol Hill push back against Trump. For example, Senator Tom Tillis, a Republican from North Carolina who'd been a solid Trumper, said he could not support a guy named Ed Martin to be the United States prosecutor in the District of Columbia, in the nation's capital, because of all his praise and support for Nazis. Well, Donald bowed down. He backed off, and he's now appointed instead a Fox News host, a former prosecutor named Jeanine Pirro, who is well known for being drunk on the hair. But she's going to be the U.S. attorney now if the Senate will approve her. So you're seeing some splits occur among Republicans who do not want to lose in the next election.